Okay.
Did it start? Yes. I think it started. Yeah.
I hope so.
Okay. Yeah. So welcome to our April meetup. And yeah, we have one cool talk on Power BI composite models. And I think the official name is or was DirectQuery for Power BI datasets and analysis services. But let's go with composite models. I think it's the nicer term. And yeah, it's the favorite feature from Artur. So if you remember, we did this year in review session at the end of 2020. We went through our favorite features, and I think composite models was in December, the official release.
Yeah.
And it was already on the horizon, and yeah, favorite feature from Artur. I still go with external tools integration, but let's see. Maybe you convince me.
Yes, as the most people do, I think. But for me, it has even more impact.
No, I also see from the
tabular editor.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
so
bring up your questions and in the chat. And with this, I hand over to Artur.
Yeah. Hello and welcome also from me. Yeah, I'm co-organizer of the Berlin Meetup group, and today I talk about the composite models preview feature. It's still in preview, but I already used it in some use cases where it was really urgent, and I was waiting for a long time to do it. Yeah, so very short, something about me, but as I will share the slides later in the group and on LinkedIn, you can just find everything about me also there online. Just add me on LinkedIn, ask me questions, and I have also an own YouTube channel, Data Unity. It's mostly in German, but there I also added some few English and subtitle videos. You can also, of course, subscribe this. Yeah, and everything else, just ask me afterwards. Yeah, what I will talk about today. So I will start like a little bit with the basics, composite models. So why they are so great, why I like this feature even more than the tabular editor, and as the best example of the external tools, I think. So I show a real use case I really use at a client actually, and I show how painful it was to do it before, and I'll test something out with, of course, anonymized data then, but the same use case, and I will show my learnings and what you have to be aware of when you use composite models in production. And also test, of course. So as Chris told, a DirectQuery for Azure Analysis Services and Power BI datasets. So very, compact name you can see here. I think the main use case Microsoft actually is advertising is like the self-service use case. So, so far it was like when you import a dataset from Power BI dataset into your BI, you have a live connection. And before December, it was not possible to add another data source then. It was just a live connection and nothing more. I will show very soon. Now it's possible actually to import also other data sources, and the main, I think also in the Microsoft blog, it is shown with Excel, like you have a centralized Power BI data set in the company, and then you have Excel files and you can merge them together, like have a self-service approach to central data. It's a cool use case, but for me, it was the core use case in my, even if I agree that self-service is the biggest use case, like in a wider audience. But for me, it was really the merging of two Power BI data sets. So when you have two semantic models actually working, and then the possibility to merge it in one. This is because I really struggled with some companies. They don't have a real, like a big data warehouse or anything. It's middle class, middle-sized to small companies. And I did the data modeling and data preparation in Power BI, in Power Query. And therefore I had to do some compromises. So you can imagine it like this. So it's a bottleneck. The data set is actually the bottleneck, and it's real. So it's also customer I can talk of. I have a lot of APIs here. This is the productive system. This is a hotel actually, like a chain of some hotels, not only one. And all hotels have different APIs for different software and also some booking systems and but also accounting data and everything. So lots of stuff actually. And everything was necessary to create some like group-wide KPIs. So all had to fit in a master data set. You see, it's one data set from lots of data sources, and then there are lots of reports again, and also reports for like several locations, not only for the master. So maybe one of the reports here, budgeting, just need one or two data sources, but it has still to go through the master data set because it's one fits all data model. Of course, I could have created a lots of data sets separate, but then the maintenance would be even worse because there are just lots of reports then, and I wouldn't have the possibility to make like aggregated KPIs that were necessary. So for these cases, lots of data sources and one fits all compromise model. This is something I really was looking forward to solve with composite models. So here lots of systems as you see, and lots of reports, but only one data set. And you can imagine this like that. You have like one model. This is the model like before, one of the partly model. And you see it's like one system, another system, and only one link. So it's easy to separate actually, but you have to load everything to like to refresh or to show any report. And in reality, it's not as compact as this. It's more like this. And so you have some exotic special use cases, then only one location has a different booking system. So you have to add it to the master data model. And so it becomes really painful to maintain it. And this is like the clean output. It's not the dirty backend I had, as you see here. It's even worse. Actually, it's the Power Query. And of course, you cannot read it, me neither. But as you see, lots of like special cases or like special use cases, old data in flat files, everything is imported and everything is part of this one big data set. So if you have a problem in one of the sources, the refresh crashes for everything. Yes, and now I have the idea to split this big wasted data model in several data models, and this is what I will show you in the software very soon. I have like separated the plan for today in two parts. So first I will show like the two standard reports, very like compact standards, how I can merge them and what learnings do I got from the use case of consolidation, like of two locations. And then I have also, this is like accounting data of two hotels I will show, and this is accounting data merged with a special system like booking system. So different data sources and data models, but merged to one master data set. So I can make like cross-model KPIs and cross-model dashboards. Yes, and this is now possible with composite models actually. So the goal for the first one, and this is actually the model, but you will see it soon in the software. It's not that big, it's in German actually, but you have 4 dimensions and 2 data tables, like bookings and KPIs. So it's quite easy and without any specialities I had before. And the goal is, of course, like to merge them. And now I will show it in the software, like for who never used composite models before. It's quite easy. So at first I import my first data set. It should be quite quick. I hope so. Okay, I take the first branch and make the connection. This was also possible before, so nothing new here. You have a live connection. This is a live connection, and like before, everything here was grayed out. So you cannot import other data sources. Now it's possible. This was the change in December. And now I can add Excel or local files or a second data set as I want to. And this is what I will do. And when I try to do it, he says, okay, you have to change your live connection to DirectQuery. So this will be permanent because you cannot just merge live connections. But if I change it to DirectQuery, nothing changes actually, just logic. And it's more local now, it's editable now. And now I can load the second one. So, okay, and this says, okay, of course, privacy issues and everything to data models, just say yes, if you know what you are doing actually. And then you maybe noticed there is everything doubled here because it was the same model. And the second one has a 2 on everything. So every table, every measure is doubled and automatically numbered. So there are no naming conflicts or anything. It just works. Awesome. So also the measures are quite, this is not the renamed. These are the renamed. So every measure has a 2 then. Okay. Yes, great. And when you look in the model view, you can actually always to upgrade when you use a new file. And then I can see it's, of course, it's not ordered. And we got some bad luck with light blue and the darker blue and not red and blue. For me, it seems random which colors you get. So correct me if I'm wrong. But as you see, this is the first model, and this is exactly the same second model with a 2 on it. Okay, so I imported 2 models, and from now on, I can do some cross-model calculations, cross-model relationships, and this one I will show in a pre-prepared files, so I don't have to build it from scratch, and so the talk is long enough, believe me. So when I go to this consolidation use case, it's actually the same for now. So when you look at all tables, and here it is red and blue, much better when you don't really into colors. You have 2 models, and I already created the connection. I will show it right now because of course, there are certain things you have to be aware of when you import. So I just imported this, and my first test was like to build a report of one of the locations actually just to see that anything works. okay, anything works, it's nice. So you can show it, but when now I want maybe to merge some stuff, so when I have the actual here, I will also, what happens when I just try to show the actual value of the second one, like the actual 2, I just put it in, and of course it's loading, then it has some problems I wasn't expecting before, and it not works. Okay, because so normally here shows like a cross product. There are always some surprises in live talks, but however, it's not working just with use dimension of one of the model for another. It's logical, so you can still like build reports on one model, but I would recommend to do this in the separate sub model and not here. So what's really about is to merge the two dimensions into one, and this is what I did here. So I had here, it's, yeah, the naming is still German. The Usali ones are like in the order of like a reporting hierarchies and accounts and everything. So these are two dimensions that are identical in their structure. And yeah, at first you can like reflex, you can just think, oh, okay, now I can link them. So what's my primary key? It's here the account, and I can just link this with this. So everything is synchronized. It would work, actually. It would work, but it's not recommendable to do it because like cross-model, like direct cross-model relationships are really non-performant. And yeah, it's also Marco Russo has shown it in his video. I refer in some parts to this because it's really great. I can highly recommend this video from Marco Russo from the Unplugged series. It's a little bit old, so some things have changed, I will point out, but he shows like the basic concept and show, okay, you can do like cross relationships. I can also like see, okay, I just take this dimension and ignore this and just make the link to the other data here. Why not? Also, this would work. I can like prove this. It works. You can filter now, but it's not best practice from a performance point of view. The best practice I highly recommend, and also does Marco Russo, is to create a local dimension because it's much more performant, even for bigger data sets, of course. This is quite a small one, so everything seems to be quite fast. This is a local dimension. You don't see any colors. I created from the 2 dimensions here because there are, there should be the same, but there might be like one account only exists in this location and one other only in this. So it's not real. They are also not really equal, the dimensions. So therefore I created this one. And how do I did this? I can show here. And here there's some trials I will explain, like because if you see here and here it's without the failure. I will start with this. You see this is the like the hierarchy from the first, from the first location, and now you see this is actual, and everything here is not working because it's actually first, and the measure is combined measure of both locations. So I have to like fix my dimensions first before I come to like cross-model measures. And how do I did this? I will show it in here. The merge, it's like the standard best practice is to do like a union of the two tables, and then don't forget the distinct. So you can just union on this and distinct, and you have like combined the dimensions and created a local dimension. I can also show it here. So this is one of the, this is actually remote. Okay, I know this, but if you show the local one, now it's here. But you have also certain problems with this, because if you do distinct overall over the whole data set, and you have like here in the first column you have like the location, so it's like a new dimension where the most of the accounts are doubled. So when you just try and guess and hope there are two of this, yes. So you see that the same account is now not unique, and this was my primary key. And even if I did the distinct, there is a problem. And this also can happen when, you know, they say to you the names are equal, the naming is equal, but it's not. And this will also be found here. So only a distinct might not be enough. So of course, in the example of Marco Russo, it is enough because he has good test data, but I've seen that in the real world it was not enough. So I like created another table from this table, like with pre-selected columns. So I removed this the columns I don't need for the combined dimension, and now you see there are less rows than in the first union, because I selected the columns that are really unique. So no names of the account, just the numbers. And here nothing is doubled. So I can trust on this. It's the same number as before, and this is unique now. So and now I can work with this, and this is now a local dimension in the model. And as I've shown here, I just linked it to the DirectQuery tables, and I can also say Marco Russo is right. It is more performant, because when you start filtering, you start here with the dimension, and you don't have to like act DirectQuery to get your dimension first and then to get data. You already have the dimension, and then you can get the data with DirectQuery. So it's also, you can watch the video of Marco Russo for the proof with DAX Studio that it is actually better. So when you need to consolidate dimensions, do it this way. Just create 1 out of 2 or 1 out of 3, and then you can do it. Of course, it's also maintenance. So it's not that easy as you might expect. It's also an idea maybe to have a special dimension data set that you also import, but you also think about how use case will it fit. If you have two dimensions in different locations, you need to combine them, I think. So yeah, there may be use cases for another special dimension data set, but it's not like recommended by Microsoft. It's not how composite models should be used. And to be honest, it was actually possible before when you use data flows. Actually, it's not so special. Okay, and now when you like know how to consolidate dimensions, it's so quite easy actually, even if I have to do this extra step when the dimensions might be ambiguous or like dynamic changing. Now I can come to the measures here, and what do I show here? It's actually, yeah, this is a special dimension for the location. it's just a hard-coded table I just typed in Power Query. So it's just locations with a number. You can use the full Power Query here. Of course, not to change the DirectQuery datasets, but you can create new data there. You can import like local files. So you have full Power Query available. And then I will show here. The first try was just to use the first one, the measure of the first location. Okay, it works. Nice. And then the Y is the second one. Works too. Okay, not so fancy right now. And then when you use if, of course, when you like according to the number of the new dimension, I can like it's like a pseudo dimension because I rely on this if. But for testing, it was quite nice. I can see, okay, this shows either this or this. So this is a real combined measure from both dimensions. And you can also use it with switch. It's the same values as you see, like with the exception that you don't like rely on like a min function, but the switch is a little bit more sophisticated. So if it's actually nothing is chosen, it's consolidated, it's added. He adds both, and then if I choose one, it only shows me the first one. Actually, it's loading sometimes. I see you can use this filter of this local dimension and then like just change the numbers from one location to another, and will show this. And if I have nothing here, it shows me the consolidated numbers. This is cool. So cross-model measures are working and quite easy, like normal measures. Just use them. So in January, switch wasn't working, interestingly, only if, but now switch works too. So great stuff. I can use it with new dimensions. And here, this is like to see, of course, when you really need to consolidate and to filter, you need like something like this. So you have this consolidated dimension used, and you have like the combined measure. So here I can really do everything. I can change from one to another and it changes the numbers. And when I have nothing selected, I just have the total sum for both. You can, in the same system, you can also like use 3 or 20 data models. It doesn't matter. And here it's like there are some trials I tried to use, like when I use only dimensions of number 1, I have something like this with the combined measure. So it's not filtered for the values that are not in this dimension. And here I have like the common, the common structure, but I have the time dimension only from number 1. So any time is the same. Actual is the same as months to date, is the same as year to date. And here it's for number 2. So you can see when I filter one, this will become logical. So it's actually the numbers that are in there. But you can also double check here. It's only the number 1, and you see, okay, it's the same. So this is how I tested, but I think the main output is you have to use common dimensions for both. And this is quite an interesting one because it is a union of also 2 dimensions, but these are not tables, these are calculation groups. So you can also use this union technique for calculation groups. So this Zeitbezug, it's the time logic. This is a dimension you cannot really see in the model, and it's also, it's not here, it's just here somewhere beyond. You may see it. Yes, it's just here, not connected really because it's a calculation group. So in the local model, it's hidden actually, but here when you import this, you see the calculation groups as tables, as you would do it normally, but you can also work with them. You can union them, you can distinct them, and they will still work. This is quite a cool thing. So I think I just used the same logic here. So I just merged it to both and like have the both calculation groups. The only thing what's different here is actually, okay, I linked the dimension to other dimensions, not directly to data tables because it's a calculation group. It's not linked to data in the model. So, but you can do it this way and consolidate your calculation groups. Also something that was not really working in January, but works now. Of course, you cannot really change calculation groups at all. So if I try to use the tabular editor and like to change anything in the calculation group or to create a new, it will say that I have to create new calculation group. I came even this far, but if I try to save then, I will see something funny. So new calculation item, test, and I think here select just for test cases. And now when I try to save, it says, nah, I cannot do it, of course, because it's DirectQuery. You need import type for this. So you cannot change your calculation groups, but you can use them and they will work for their respective parts, but you can also consolidate them and they will work. They will continue to work. This was quite a cool finding that even calculation groups work in the composite models. So this is just, yeah, some facts I summed up. So just I show it already. Also the code for union distinct and the link to the video of Marco Russo. So you can like read everything. Of course, the main facts like no cross references. Be aware of performance best practices to use local models. And of course, like it's still hard to maintain because you have to consolidate everything with DAX code. So you really have to think about, is it really necessary to do this consolidated report? So you could have done this in Power Query before, to be honest. So it's not that great improvement, you know, if you already have the same measures and have to merge them again. So if you would have done the model, fixed the model in Power Query, it might be more useful. It's like I did before actually, but yeah, for consolidation use case, I only recommend to use composite models for consolidation when there are just a few measures you need consolidated. Then you can use the full semantic model to import, to merge the dimensions you need, not all. I think that would be not practical. And then to merge some of the measures you need for group-wise report. Then it will work, and then it's also more easy to maintain than Power Query because you can use one of the submodels in different like consolidated and consolidated reports or special reports by using actually the composite models. Okay, so this is one about the measures. So yeah, I already told it now. So it works, but be aware of maintenance, and calculation groups also work. You can consolidate, but you cannot edit, of course. It's normal, nothing new about. So these are the summed up facts. So almost everything is green. So like the best case I expected, and to be honest, that calculation groups don't work in DirectQuery. Yes, it is like this, it's nothing new. Yeah, here we go. But of course, you have to do it. You have to consolidate this code. So be aware of what's if it needs to be done. And since March, there were some improvements, like the sortings are now imported, like sort by another column, and also the folders of the measures, as you have seen, are also imported now. So yeah, nice feature, but yeah, my learnings have been that you still have maintenance effort with consolidating measures, with consolidating dimensions. So imagine if I would add a third location, I would have to edit all my measures. Of course, you can like build a clever hierarchy of measures, so you don't have to edit everything, but yeah, it's still maintenance, and maybe it's still easier to like just append the tables and Power Query, the data tables and the dimensions. You can do everything there. Just for simple use cases where you need a lot of measures consolidated, I would recommend Power Query more, or data flows. And in use cases, you just need a few KPIs. I would recommend more this way, like to use composite models and create cross-dimensional measures. Of course, you can also be useful maybe for some special use cases, like, for example, I have the older years in a flat file stored, and it's all the time it was still loaded again and refreshed, because I use web data sources too in import mode. You cannot fold them, so you can like separate the refreshment of the flat file. You can create a separate Power BI data set and just add it then to the other model, and don't have to refresh it all the time with the other submodels. This was like a cool thing, but at all, consolidation will not be my main use case for composite models. So I can come to the second use case. It's like to connect two separate models. It will be faster because all the concepts I have talked about, cross-model measures, cross-model dimensions, consolidation, of course it still works also in this use case. And here this will be like the use case, like a standard model you have already seen, but not with the same standard unified, but with a specific model that is from another system, from a booking system, just with only one link, and it's the time dimension. Okay, every model has a time. So they're real separate models, but for some KPIs, for example, like revenue per customer, you need two models. You need the revenue from accounting, and you need the customers from the booking system. So yeah, if you don't want like to build some crazy stuff in Power Query as I did before, it's a very good way to connect them for these use cases, for cross-model reports with composite models, and then calculate the cross-model KPIs. And there is a funny thing in it I can show. When I try to import it, I will just do it. Like this is only the consolidation, but I can also add a third data set. It's no problem. This is the other system, and if I try to import this, it will say, oh, okay, actual KPI num is already used for another measure. This is quite funny because, as we've seen, there were lots of similar measures in the previous trial, and he automatically renamed it, but it only does the renaming when the tables have exactly the same names. If you have the actual KPI num in another table, like the measure is actually, I will show it. actual KPI name is here. And if the other model has it in another table. So this is the problem. And so I cannot add the other model until I rename it, but I can just rename it. It doesn't lose the function if I rename the measures locally after importing them via DirectQuery. So I just renamed it, and now I can try again. And so, okay, I forgot to save. Sorry for this. Okay. Yeah, I will re-import it now. So this is how it works. Like when I add the more specific model, now it will work. And you see now it's working. And I have this actual KPI num somewhere in another table. Therefore, he did all the problems for me. I can show it. So you have to be aware of the naming. There was an actual KPI num, but in another table. So different tables, same named measure is a problem. Similar tables and same named measure is no problem. This is my learning. So you have to, but you can easily rename. So it's not a big problem, but you have to be aware of this. Okay, now I will not save it because I wasted my model, because I have already pre-built here the multi-model test. I can show here. Yeah, this is like the same as on the slide, but just not so pretty. We have red and blue submodels, and this is the more exotic one, and this is the standard, the red one. Okay, yeah, they're not ordered well. I don't really pay much attention to this. But now, as I see it, just the monthly is only from the standard, just for the proof that everything works, but you have seen it already in other use case. And here, this is from the other model. You can see it here, and it works too. Okay, but what's real interesting is the combination. And as we know, cross-model measures works. And here, this is my revenue per guest. This was everything I ever wanted to create, and just actual revenue and like number of guests in German. So just a divide, but these measures are from separate models, and I can prove it here with the calendar, because this is loading, but I hope it will be there soon. This is like, as I marked, this is the calendar from the first model. Oh, it's really slow, and there it's of course, like here you can see now, this is the calendar from the first model. If I filter this on 220, for example, it only filters this and the combined measure. So it works for the combined measure, but only for the part that this model like actually cares about the revenue and not the guests. When I use the second calendar of the second model, it will filter also the guests, and this is the real combined value. But of course, you don't want to use the two calendar dimensions, so you also have to aggregate your calendar. Yeah, fortunately, you can do it in DAX, this calendar auto even. It's the most easy way, but you can also, of course, consolidate it with union. You can also create a Power Query calendar. This is like a calendar I created in Power Query, and also connect them to the other calendar. So if I use this one, the combined, everything is filtered. So this is, here you can combine calendars. Quite cool. and here it's how it works. Here in this case, I was adding the new calendar, for example, DAX and Power Query, they both work. In January, the DAX one wasn't working well, only Power Query worked, interestingly. Now everything's working, you can really choose. And now it's linked to this previous calendar and not to the data, as I have shown before. So if I just maybe show the bookings, for example, this, you can see it. This is my data table, and yeah, it's cross-linked. So at first, it seems like non-best practice, like a snowflake schema, that you link dimensions to other dimensions and then to data and not directly to data. I could also have done this, but then all my measures I have to edit my measures. I have to recreate my measures that use time logic, because the time logic, like same period, previous year and year to date and everything, they rely on this date. So it's easier to do this, to do the cross-linking and to just make this split, like sub-dimensions disappear. Also Marco Russo did it, so it's not that bad after all. It's not, after all, it's more like a galaxy schema of two schemas and not a snowflake that we all should avoid. And the interesting thing is you don't even have to mark the calendar, the new consolidated calendar, as a data table. This was quite a cool thing I was not expecting. So when I do this, it's not marked as data table. I can prove it in the DAX Studio. There are no of this invisible data tables, not at all. So yeah, you have the calendars. These are okay, they are hidden, but they are stuck with these calendars. But the consolidated one, the DAX and Power Query, they don't have like this hidden data table stuff. They don't have to be marked as data table, but all the time logic still works because they are linked to the sub dimensions of the respective submodels. So this is quite a cool finding, and therefore I used like the dimension to dimension linking in this case for time dimensions, just to keep my measures working. And here the effort is not so big because I only created one new measure I needed. I can build new reports that I needed for this cross-model use case, and all the previous measures, they just work. Yeah. Okay, and I have to consolidate, as you see, the calculation groups too, but I have shown before, I think I hope it was clear. So if not, I can, of course, I'm open to your questions very soon, because this was like my main finding in this case, because everything else was just working. So you have to do the renaming. This is, I want to point out this, and then you have to do the calculation groups. And as you see, when you have the calculation group only of model 1, it has no effect on the data from model 2, but full effects on model 1 and also on the cross model, but only for the part that is from model 1. But you also can, of course, consolidate them, as I've shown before. So yeah, this is a cross-model linking that I have shown right now. So there are some new findings I added here in the summary, like the naming, like quite strange. In different tables, error, in the same tables, no error. And the calendar, so you can create new. I recommend this like hierarchical linking, and here you see that some of the translation is not working so great. course, it's calculation group, costing. So it's preserved. You don't need all. So this was like a good success for different models. It really solved my problem because I don't have to create like a master data model of two models that are mostly separate in their logic, but I had to link them just for the use case of a few reports. Now I can just create a few reports with composite models, and the local models can evolve by themselves. And yeah, I don't have to care about such a big master model that is hard to maintain. So yeah, this my benefits, of course, I can stack to minimal to standardized data models. I can implement the special solutions only when they are needed. I can remove old data from refresh by separating it in a special submodel. And yeah, if there is a new system, this is just relevant for a special report. I can just make the extension with composite models without like touching my master data model and maybe destroying it. Yes, and this is what I will focus on in the future. I will more focus on bringing different models together, because for consolidation, it doesn't scale so well, because you have to consolidate many things by code, by DAX code, and it's not really easier to maintain in many cases than before by merging in Power Query. But here, this is the great thing about really connecting two semantic models, and in comparison, like to before, I don't have to rely on external sources. I can rely on models I have also already built. So I can like have full control here over the models and also over the master data set. So this is what I will do from now. I'm quite happy with this feature. As you see in the summary, almost everything was green as I wanted to use, and it works stable now, especially since March, even if it's in preview. So if you struggle with some messy data, I recommend it. Yes, here was a question, how many levels can you have? Like, can you, for example, combine this composite model to another composite model? Yes, you can, but you are limited to 3 levels. So then, like here, as you see, 3 levels and not more. You can read in the Microsoft blog. Yeah, it's just limited to this. You cannot do like 200 levels, but 3 is quite good. Okay, this was it.
I think one more question just
between a live connection and DirectQuery. Okay, yes, because live connection is really just a connection. You cannot do anything else about this model. It's live. It's also live refreshed. It really relies on the cloud. So the main thing is you cannot edit it at all, but it's faster than DirectQuery. And DirectQuery is like a mixture between import and live. You have it. It relies on the external model, but you can add some other stuff to it. I also don't have used DirectQuery that much before composite models, to be honest, because I prefer import mode. It's when you import it, it's faster and you can model.
I think one thing is also, if I'm not mistaken, that you, for example, couldn't create columns there. And this is, for example, you could, of course, do measures, but not the columns. And sometimes, let's say, one use case is not only if you want to combine data models, what Artur showed, but like, let's say you just want to arrange it a bit different and say like group products or group countries, and this is not done in the model. Or then you can do it there with a separate column and just group it with an if or switch statement. That's also one benefit on that side, I would say.
Yeah. So actually in this bottleneck model I've shown, I use a lot the live connection. I used it before composite models because I just connect to this live one and just create a sub-report on this master data set. And yes, you can create measures with
measures, yes, but columns,
but no columns and no modeling. So yeah, you're just limited to measures. But so if you really just need like a sub-report, live connection is still better, I think. If you don't need any other data sources, I would continue to use it because it's faster and you don't have to configure the refresh. Yeah, but otherwise.
And always also think about the use case, what's really the best approach in general. So I think composite models is super powerful for these use cases where you need to combine the sources. But if you have actually access to, let's say, the data warehouse or something, or then you should think like, okay, maybe it's better to do it on that level. Do it there, or with a data flow for repeated usage. So this really depends on the scenario, I would say.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So the OneDrive link I will post over on Meetup. Don't worry. I just saw a question there. Just send me the PowerPoint and then I can put it there.
Yes, and I can, it's not the PDF version. I just shared the link. It's also public. But
there.
I think it's better to when you also keep it. I can also
post here.
And
then also over on Meetup, and then you can follow it there. Also for the people watching it later, then they can have the content.
The video will follow, and just
sometime next week, definitely.
Feel free to contact us.
Okay.
Nice. So
thank you for attending. Thank you, Artur.
Say thank you, Chris, and then you can. I think you will announce your meetup then soon, and then.
In time, don't worry.
Okay.
Once I know the final date, then it's be done. Okay.
Okay. So have a good evening.
Have a nice evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.